This is Joanna Kerns, and you're listening to Fascination Street podcast.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This is the 5-year anniversary of Fascination Street podcast. I'm very excited. Thank you all for such an amazing trip. This has been a blast getting to 5 years. We did the 300 episodes. That 300th episode was on 420. And so we had Tommy Chong come on as the guest. And for this episode, this 5-year anniversary episode, I am bringing to you one of the most iconic television mothers in American television history, a very accomplished and highly sought-after director and executive producer of every show you could possibly imagine, Joanna Kerns. In this episode, we talk a little bit about what her career was before she got Growing Pains. Then, of course, we talk about Growing Pains, and we spend a pretty decent amount of time talking about her experiences on that set and with some of the cast. And then we move into directing. She directs a lot of things. We talk about some of them. Mostly we talk about A Million Little Things, which is an ABC TV show. We talk about what an executive producer is, because she is a co-executive producer of A Million Little Things on ABC. Also, how hard it was to break into directing as a woman. And then there's a TV show from back in the 80s and 90s that's coming back, and she is directing at least one of those episodes. So we talk a little bit about that. And Streetwalkers, I can't tell you how hard it was for me not to fanboy out talking to this lovely woman. Obviously, I watched every episode of Growing Pains. I was right there in front of the TV every single time it came on. It was appointment television for me, and it kept me out of trouble. I grew up watching this woman. So I'm very excited on this 5-year anniversary of Fascination Street podcast to bring you the lovely, the talented, the groundbreaking Joanna Kerns.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street podcast, Joanna Kerns. How you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh my gosh. I'm sure you get this all the time. I'm so excited right now to talk to you. It must get old, so I'm not going to fanboy too much. That's going to be hard because, well, you helped raise me, so I appreciate that. Now, Joanna, I like to start with where people were born and raised. It kind of helps us get to understand how they came to where they are. So take it away. Where'd you grow up? Where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in San Francisco, California, but I kind of lived all over the place. I lived in Lafayette, California, which is a little inland and across the bay from San Francisco. And I lived there till I was about 9. And then we moved to Santa Clara, California, where I went almost till high school because my sister was a nationally ranked swimmer. And there was a swim coach there at the time. And we moved there so she could train with the Olympic coach, actually. I stayed there until my sophomore year of high school. And then I went to Fresno for a couple of years and Reno for a year and then back to Santa Clara. I've been all over the place.
So other than your sister's swimming career, why did you guys move around so much?
Well, I had a very athletic-minded family. And my sister was training for the Olympics, and she achieved that. She went to the 1960 Olympic Games, the 1964 Olympic Games. And I was training in gymnastics. And the coach that I was going to train with and did eventually train with was in Fresno at the time. So I went to a high school there and boarded and lived with a family and did gymnastics and made it to the Olympic trials, didn't make the team. But then my senior year in high school, I went to work with the Olympic coach who was in Reno, Nevada. And I went and lived there and trained for a year until I got hurt. And then I wound up coming back to Santa Clara and finishing my high school years with my friends from grammar school, which was nice.
I'm sure that was a shock to their system. They're like, hey, didn't we used to know you a long time ago? What are you doing back here?
Yeah. When did you get to be so tall? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It was an adjustment. I mean, I really had kind of, did you see King Richard?
No, I did not.
It's a fabulous movie. It's really about Serena and Venus and their dad and Richard being King Richard. My dad was very much like King Richard. At one point, I had written a screenplay about my sister and I. It was about these two sisters competing for their father's love. And my friends called it, I Never Swam for My Father. So it was, it was kind of the whole focus of the family was on sports and being the best you could be.
Do you have a good relationship with your parents now?
Well, they're both gone now.
So yes.
And yes, I do. I did. My dad was actually, I just felt he never made any money. He was a life insurance salesman and he was so painfully shy and kind of shut down.
He was a salesman and he was shy?
Yes.
Wow, that makes for a rough living.
Yeah, you don't make any money. So both my parents worked and he loved coaching and he loved being around his kids. It just was it could be a little claustrophobic. I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to go away and train because I didn't want him in the gym all the time. Looking back on it, I really thank him because I think the tools that I learned through being an athlete and working that hard and failing and then getting back up and trying again have been invaluable lessons for me.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
I've heard that organized sports, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you hard work, and it teaches you that it's okay to fail, to not win all the time, every time. Do you think that helped you in your career going forward, like later on?
I do, especially as an actress. When I was starting out, I came into it through dance because through my gymnastics, I had lots of dance training. And I actually dropped out of school at UCLA when I was at UCLA because I auditioned for a Gene Kelly musical and I got it. I dropped out of school. My parents were just horrified. And I went on the road with Gene Kelly and the show closed before it officially opened. And then I had left school and I did all that stuff. I was devastated. I thought, oh my God, I thought I'd made it. And that was just my first lesson that, as a young actress, I could go on 20 auditions and not get one. And then you start to, fortunately for me, I did start to get work, but I didn't let it destroy me. It didn't mean that I was a failure. It meant I wasn't right for the part. So it helped me. And especially on this side as a director now, because I'm basically just directing these days, I can see it with actors because an actor will come in and they can be wonderful, but they're not right. So it helped me kind of handle all that.
That makes sense. We're going to get into your directing, well, eventually, but let's just say soon. But first, what was it like to work with Gene Kelly? I mean, hello, it's Gene freaking Kelly.
I know. Wasn't that crazy? I mean, I'd grown up watching all those movies on late night television. He was a good guy. He decided he wanted to do kind of the answer to Disney on Parade because Disney on Parade was so successful. He wanted to do a musical with basically acrobatic dancers and singers that he would travel all across the U.S. So he went across the U.S. auditioning really young kids from different things. So I was only 18.
Oh, wow.
When I got that job. Laugh-In was on at the time. Ruth Buzzy was part of the, you had to have a celebrity. So Ruth Buzzy and, the tall, skinny guy, I can't remember his name right now, were our kind of clowns and MCs throughout. But he was great. The choreographer was Howard Jeffries, who'd been in the original West Side Story. So it was all we were on the old MGM lot in one of those old, huge stages that Gene used to do his musicals in. And, he wasn't down there all the time, but he'd come and watch the rehearsals and he'd say nice things to us. And I did get to have dinner at his house.
Oh,
with a very small group because I wound up being the dance captain for 50 singers and dancers.
Oh my gosh.
So I would teach them a section of a routine and then another dance captain would teach them something else. He had a special dinner and we went to that. I got to go into his house. And I got to see all these photographs of Fred Astaire and him dancing together and all these great things. It was kind of a dream come true. It was really fun.
That's fantastic. I think he was in the first movie that joined animation and live action.
I think he was.
He was in a movie, I think it was called Ships Ahoy or Anchors Away. It was one of those.
Yeah.
It was him and Frank Sinatra, and they were dancing, and then along comes Tom and Jerry, and they're dancing too. They're all four dancing together or whatever.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So then, I can't believe I'm going to say these words. Then you became a gold digger.
Oh, you know what I was? I was a scab gold digger.
Tell me all about that. First, tell everybody what a gold digger is so they don't think I just called you a name.
Okay. I'm so ancient. So Dean Martin had a show that was very popular that he'd sing, and then he'd have these little skits, and he had dancers in between. I mean, it was on in the 70s. Was it on in the 70s? It must have been on in the 70s. I had done a show called Two Gentlemen of Verona for Joe Papp. I'd done a national tour as a dancer, a chorus dancer. Katie Segal was my roommate on that, actually.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, and we got to Los Angeles. We heard that the gold diggers, who were the dancers on the show, had decided to go on strike. Not a good idea. They had gone on strike for more money. And the choreographer just called up our choreographer and said, do you have anybody that, might work for our show? And he sent over a few of us, and I wound up being one of them. So that's how I wound up being a scab gold digger. Howard Cosell was a guest star, I remember, and Nipsey Russell.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so 70s. It was so retro. It was so kind of women as dressing. It wouldn't fly today. Very politically incorrect.
Yes, it would not fly today. But for its time, it was right in the wheelhouse of the 60s and the 70s. What was Dean like?
Dean was kind of doing the show. He was nice enough, but he didn't pay much attention to us, if I remember correctly.
He was just kind of going through the motions. It was perfunctory.
Yeah, it was a little perfunctory. We were babies. We were 18, 19 years old, and he was much older.
He had been in the business nearly 40 years by that time, I think.
Right.
Well, hey, do you know if it really was iced tea in his glass?
I don't think it was. I think that was one of the problems.
That is hilarious. Now, we're going to bounce around a little bit, but can you tell me about women in film, Crystal?
Yeah. Years ago, I was asked to join the board of Women in Film. And Women in Film, up till that point, had been this little group that didn't actually do much for anybody else. Women got together who were in film, not necessarily women who were filmmakers.
Okay.
I came on the board. I just said, we have to change this. And if we have an event every year where we sell tables and we raise money, it can't just be to support this organization that hasn't really found what it can do yet. And they had started something called the Film Finishing Fund, which is great, where they raised money and they helped filmmakers finish films. They would have this event every year around the Oscars, and they couldn't figure out why nobody was coming to their event. There was 2 or 3 events that were just, one was at Spago's and all the stars went, and they couldn't figure out why no one came to them. And I said, well, because you're talking about the Oscars. I said, we should really celebrate the Emmys. We should really focus on TV. It's hard to imagine because TV is it's it right now. It's everything. But in the 80s and 90s, a TV star seldom made the leap to film. Bruce Willis did, and a few others did, but it was a hard jump because there was this real separation. It was kind of a very snobby in a way. So I said, we should do something celebrates women in television. And I've had a small group, and we came up with the idea of the Lucy Awards, because Lucille Ball was the first woman to own a studio, own her own show, syndicate her own show. I mean, she and Desi were pretty brilliant. And so I called Lucy Jr. and kind of really had to cajole her in order for us to get to use her mother's name. And she finally said yes. And we started an event that became so successful that the Crystal Awards, which were originally the ones they used to do, it became the Lucy Crystal. And I think it kind of all became one. So now they celebrate television and film, and there's such a crossover between the two that it's a very successful event every year. And now the tables that they sell, there's always a percentage of the profits that go to scholarships for women filmmakers, women and minorities. I think it's a great group.
And you co-founded that specific award and the transition to focus on TV. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, how cool are you making impacts everywhere you go? Okay. There was this TV show a long time ago that was kind of neat. Can we talk a little bit about Growing Pains?
Sure.
For the children listening right now, like including my children who were born like during the last 2 years of this show, at the time, like 33 million people watched Growing Pains on television. It was appointment television. Yeah, some people, I guess, videotaped it or whatever and watched it later, but there was no TiVo. There was no, I guess there was, but it was not ubiquitous. So everybody was sitting in front of their 33 million people. And at the time, there was, I think it was 240 million Americans. So that is a huge chunk of America that's all crowded around a TV watching this show. There was 7 seasons, 166 episodes. Growing Pains ran from 1985 to 1992. Can you tell me how you came to be a part of that show?
Oh my God. I've been in Los Angeles. I came out from New York and I'd been auditioning. I'd been an actress, really beating the pavement for about 10 years. And I had done one series before then. I did the 4 seasons, which was Alan Alda's TV version of the hit movie he made. And Alan Alda was coming off of MASH. It was a huge thing. Again, I thought that was like my Gene Kelly. I thought, oh my God, I'm working with Alan Alda and it's going to go forever. And it was off in 13 episodes. And then it was just an audition. I auditioned for Growing Pains that season. And I probably tested for 3 or 4 other shows that season, which I had done for many years. I would test and not get it. And I think I didn't get roles for many years because I'm kind of a strong female presence. I'm not a ingenue. I was never kind of an ingenue. I was always the best friend or the ex-wife or that kind of thing. But I think what happened for me with Growing Pains is suddenly I was old enough to play a mom and it kind of fit. And I went in to audition and I auditioned at least 3 times before I went to the network. And when you go to the network, for those that you are listening, you go into this horrible room that's dark usually, and all the executives sit out in the audience. At ABC, they had this room where there were these rows of seats. And you do your scene. And at the end of it, they say, thank you very much. Nobody laughs because everybody's afraid to laugh. And you never really know how you do. I auditioned and I got down to a place where there was only 2 of us auditioning, 2 women. And when they called me back the 3rd or 4th time and a room full of guys, I auditioned and I went away thinking, oh my God, I have a 50-50 chance of getting this. I went away for the weekend and I get a call. I was down in Palm Springs with my first husband and I get a call and they say, can you come back? We need to see you again. We need to pick a guy. And I'm thinking, I've got it. They want to match somebody with me. I go back and I walk into the lobby at ABC and there's every woman I've ever auditioned with and 2 men. And one of them is Alan Thicke. I don't know why that happened. I learned later from my producers, the people that created the show, that they always wanted me, but the head of the network wasn't sure, didn't think so. They brought me back and he didn't even remember he'd seen me. He was soon fired from ABC. I read with Alan and this other actor who was from Canadian TV. And of course, the rest is history. We literally started the next day.
Really? The next day?
I went out afterwards with, because we're all friends, we auditioned together over the years. And a bunch of these women who had been in the room with me, we went to have a drink. And while I was at the restaurant, I got a call. This is before cell phones. So I got a call in the restaurant. And it was my manager, and she said, you got the part. So that's how it happened.
What? Are you messing with me?
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
So I ran into previous guest of the show, Chris Gronkowski, the other day, and it went a little something like this.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Chris. Hey, you know what sucks? When I get done with my workout at the gym, my protein shake's not cold anymore, man. It's room temperature.
Weird. I haven't run into you at the gym lately.
Busted. Okay, truth be told, I don't work out, but I do get thirsty after a long day of podcasting. I just can't seem to keep my cocktails cold.
You should use an ice shaker.
What's an ice shaker?
The ice shaker is a double-wall, vacuum-insulated stainless steel shaker bottle with a patented twist and agitator that breaks up the protein powders.
So you're saying I should switch to an ice shaker, take out the agitator so I can fit more ice in the cup and it'll stay cold longer?
Steve, you don't need more ice. The ice shaker is third-party tested and verified to keep your drink cold for 30-plus hours.
Chris, you're a genius. I'll still remove the patented screw and agitator and just add more booze.
I guess technically you could, but if you actually use the ice shaker as a protein drink cup, the agitator breaks up the powder and doesn't bounce around like you're shaking a paint can.
Why are we still talking? Let's party.
Gronk style!
That's right, Streetwalkers. Ice Shaker is the new sponsor at Fascination Street Podcast. Ice Shaker is made from kitchen-grade stainless steel so it doesn't smell all funky after you use it a couple of times like those cheap plastic ones. When I'm out and about doing interviews or partying Gronk style, I use the Fascination Street Podcast Edition 26-ounce Flex Ice Shaker cup, and it keeps my drink cold until the sun comes up. You saw Ice Shaker on Shark Tank. All 5 sharks made an offer with Mark Cuban and Alex Rodriguez closing the deal. Now you can get a deal too. Order your own 26-ounce Flex Cup right now at iceshaker.com and use the promo code FSP for $5 off your first order. Once again, that's iceshaker.com, promo code FSP, as in Fascination Street Pod, for $5 off your first order. That's iceshaker.com, promo code FSP.
Let's get back into it.
So, previous guest of my show, BJ Thomas, sang the theme song for Growing Pains, and he even let me play the song on my show. Did you ever have a chance to meet him? Like, did he come down to the set or anything ever?
You know, not that I know of, but it was a huge hit. I really think his song, like all music, it just set up the tone. I mean, it was great. Oftentimes I go on a set when I'm directing, and when I finish, everybody thinks that they're the first one that's ever done it. But when I finish the episode, they play the Growing Pains theme song.
How does that make you feel? That's really sweet.
It is sweet. It is sweet. You know, I think Growing Pains was such a gift. And Alan used to say the same thing, that, you know, we were just so fortunate to have something that came on at the time it did and fit the moment, fit the zeitgeist. It was just amazing that it took off the way it did and hit people the way it did. And I know that to be in the right time as an actress and be able to get in the room, you know, just to audition was kind of a privilege. So I always felt beginning to end that this show changed my life in so many ways, changed my life.
That show changed a bunch of people's lives.
Yeah.
Besides you and Alan, there was Tracy and Kirk and Jeremy. And then you guys added another kid later on.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what happened to him, though.
No, I'm talking about the girl. There was a girl y'all added.
Oh, Ashley Johnson.
Yeah, she's huge now, too. Like, everybody's huge.
She's huge, and she's beautiful, and she's talented, and she's great.
And the list of people who guest starred, I guess, like before we even knew who they were, like the list of people that were on that show were insane.
Yeah.
Leo, and I think, what's his name? Brad somebody? Wasn't he on there once?
Yeah. Brad Pitt was on our show twice.
Didn't he play like a musician or something that Alan really enjoyed or whatever?
One of them was called Feet of Clay. I remember this episode so clearly. First of all, you remembered him so clearly because, you know, he just had it. And even though it was a, you know, sitcom, he was pretty spectacular even then. But it was about a rock star who Alan takes, you know, Jason and Mike go to the concert, and he's so excited for his son to meet this rock star. And then the rock star turns out to be a jerk.
What?
Yeah. But Brad is the only guest star that we had on twice.
Interesting.
Like so many shows now,
Are linear.
yeah, you follow the arc, but these were all contained episodes. So if you had somebody from a season before, you could do it. Like I did Three's Company twice.
We're going to get to that sort of weird crossover in a little bit. So Kirk Cameron on that show, he used to answer the phone this really cool way. He used to like hit the receiver with the palm of his hand and the receiver would just snap up and he'd catch it.
Yeah.
And when cell phones really started becoming ubiquitous and everywhere, I got really sad that I couldn't answer the phone like that anymore because I answered the phone like that every single day. I was like, this is so cool. When I first saw him do that, I must have practiced for hours trying to get it just right so it looked as cool as when he did it.
Our director, John Pasquin, who went on to do all of Tim Allen's movies, he directed our pilot. And there's actually in the pilot, there's a thing where I take a wooden spoon and I do the same thing and and I catch it. And I think it was in the original opening credits, but I think John gave that to both me and Kirk.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Kirk, recently, like, I don't know, like a month ago or something, Kirk Cameron was on the Adam Carolla show and they asked about what it was like to work with you and Alan. And he said, and I wrote this down, and this is a quote, a direct quote. He said, one of the blessings of having Alan Thicke and Joanna Kerns as my mom and dad on the show is that they really valued being parents. And so they understood, you know, if our kids were on the set like this, we know how we would want people to treat them. So they treated us like a real mom and dad would, which I thought was really, really sweet. And I know that some of the people on that show went in a little bit different directions in just, you know, life and whatever. Is everybody from the show still on relatively good terms as of now?
Yes, we are. You know, Kirk has some beliefs that I don't agree with, but I love the guy. Some of his stands I just do not understand.
Sure.
But, you know, I think we live in a world where people feel like they have to hate the other person because they don't believe what they do. And I think that has to stop.
Remember back in the olden days when we all would all disagree on stuff and it was okay? Can we go back to that?
Can we go back to that? It's so polarized. It's very publicized. There was a hard time within the cast when Kirk found his religion because he couldn't figure out how to blend his family outside who didn't have his faith with those that did. And later when we did a reunion movie, actually that I directed, he made amends to all of us for that. And he said, you know, I was an 18-year-old kid. What did I know? You know, so no, I love them all. And I talked to Tracy really the most. You know, we just check in with each other. It was very hard for all of us when Alan died, and we all saw each other at the memorial, of course. We were a family. We spent more time with each other than we did with our own families. And families have squabbles. But most of the time we had fun. I mean, really a lot of fun. And we genuinely cared deeply about each other.
I love hearing that. That's basically what he said too. I mean, he said it a little differently, but yes, that was the underlying message there. I just think it's really sweet that you guys, I mean, they were such small children and you guys were playing their parents on the show. And he made it sound like, and you have in other interviews made it sound like that wasn't just when the cameras were on, you know, like there's kids running around the set. There was whole trailers where kids could just do their homework and play games and all kinds of stuff. So I think that was really, really a time to remember and enjoy. And I love that. And I think it's also super sweet that just like mothers and daughters do, you and Tracy still talk fairly often. I think that's super sweet.
Yeah.
Alan has been described by you as, quote, a rascal and a bit of a ladies' man.
Yes.
When Growing Pains first started, you were both single. You were very newly single.
Yes.
So, two good-looking single folks working 12 hours a day side by side. Was there ever any off-screen romance?
You know, there was not. There was not, but I adored him. And when I say rascal is a sweet term, he was truly a ladies' man and a playboy in many ways. I think we both knew there was definitely attraction, but I think we both knew that would be such a mistake. But we celebrated birthdays, we did all these events together, but we did not ever have a romance.
Well, as a fan, damn, that's a shame.
He's a good kisser, though. I got to kiss him on camera all the time.
Oh, speaking of kissing,
Yeah.
Tracy's first kiss on camera and off camera was with who?
Brad Pitt.
Can you believe that?
I know.
Wow, that's so cool. Way to go, Tracy.
Yeah.
And also, it sucks to be every boyfriend after that of Tracy's.
I know.
Okay, the last thing I want to say about the show before we move on. In the series finale, you went back into the house and you grabbed the family photo. Did you keep it?
No, they took it. It was a prop.
Gosh. So, Joanna, somewhat after, well, no, I guess it started on Growing Pains, but you got into directing. First, I want to know why. You're beautiful, you're a star, all of you're a fantastic actress. Why did you decide to just go hide behind the camera?
I was 32 when Growing Pains started. And the truth is about being an actress in Hollywood is that there's kind of this gap for women, mid 40s to 60s, where the roles just kind of dump out. At least then that was the case. I looked at it and I thought, this really looks interesting to me. I actually think even when I decided that I wanted to direct, I didn't know that I would enjoy it as much as I do. I just felt like I wanted to remain in the business, working in the business. And when I started to actually produce, like I produced a pilot and I produced a couple of TV movies, that I loved being behind the scenes. I love putting a project together. And when you direct, especially in film versus for camera, you really are responsible for figuring out how to put that script up on screen. Every shot, every angle, every location, every actor, you're responsible for. It was really wonderfully challenging. And I found, as I was learning how to do it, that I actually loved it maybe even more than acting.
So in the moment, like whatever you said, you're in your late 30s or whatever when the show ends. So in that moment, you were consciously aware that you, for lack of a better term, were coming upon basically an age expiration. And so you made that turn?
Well, you can get benched, and I know so many wonderful actresses who at my age, they hope there's a role in something, because with the exception of a few actresses, and I talked to Jean Smart recently, who's doing Hacks. Oh my God, she's so fabulous. It's such a fabulous part, but they just don't write those roles. You're really secondary. And I did 35 of those TV movies where I was a star, and I could see that it was just shifting. It could shift. I wasn't there yet, so I kind of was ahead of the curve, and I was still acting as I was beginning to direct. But I remember my agent saying to me, okay, if we get you all these episodes to direct, you can't say, oh, I'm sorry, I got a part. It can't be your second profession. There's too many directors out there fighting for these jobs. So I made that commitment. And eventually I wasn't available because actors are the last one hired. I'm co-executive producing a show for ABC right now called
A Million Little Things.
Million Little Things up in Vancouver. But we cast our actors, and we're just hoping we cast them soon enough, our guest stars, that they can get on the plane and get through immigration and get through COVID protocol and all that kind of stuff for us to put them on camera. So it became that my directing work took over, and it was just kind of this natural thing that kind of took over, and I haven't looked back.
As a woman, do you think it was difficult for you to break into directing? Because you have to throw some elbows?
It was impossible. First of all, I didn't know what I didn't know. I thought I was going to be a four-camera director, which is basically a sitcom director, because I had this huge career with Growing Pains. And I thought, I know comedy. I'm going to do this. And it was 1991 or 92 when I got my DGA card. And at that time, there was so many bad sitcoms that had been on the air.
Name them.
They
I'm just kidding.
saturated because the ones that had legs, spawned all these clones, and then it just saturated the market and the market went away. And it was kind of before they were doing one camera comedy. I mean, they're doing a lot of one camera comedy right now, or dramedies as we call them. So it kind of was a time that, since I thought I was going to do the 4-camera and it went away, I started thinking, well, how can I get into shows that are comedy with drama? And I started to observe and shadow directors on Ally McBeal. And Ally McBeal was a juggernaut. And I was very fortunate to get a chance to direct that show. And that show got me another show and another show and another show. And I wound up on the other side in the one camera world of directing, which is our dramedies. And I've been kind of there ever since.
I'm glad that you brought up, you originally thought maybe you would be directing comedies and 4 cameras, but then you sort of transitioned into single camera and dramas. So everybody listening, she has directed everything from Scrubs to Psych, Dawson's Creek, Pretty Little Liars, the Goldbergs. Most recently, she directed for This Is Us and quite a few episodes and co-executive produced, like she said earlier, A Million Little Things on ABC, which I've never missed it. I started watching it from the pilot.
Oh, wow.
Only because I was a huge fan of Psych, and James Roday and I went to high school together.
You did?
Well, hold on. Actually, that's okay. We went to high school at the same time in the same town, but not the same school. So no, we didn't. But I just love that dude so much.
He's talented.
Yes, he is. So I think it's really cool that you don't just direct a specific genre. You direct everything, everybody, all over the place. I want to know how difficult that is. Do you have to put on a different hat? Is it a different toggle? Is there a different Joanne that's doing comedy directing versus drama directing?
Well, I think, and I always felt this even when I was acting, I don't know if you can teach somebody how to do comedy. You either hear the rhythm of it or you don't. I think that's why there was so many bad sitcoms too for a while. It is a different rhythm, but in essence, it's the same, because you really want, even in the broadest of comedy, there has to be truth. You have to figure out how to get that and how to choreograph that. I mean, James Roday is one of the most talented comedians. Part of it is because he's so smart. He just so understands the core of a line, of a joke, and he never sells it in a way that lets you know that he's in on it. I just loved working with him on Psych. I love him. And I love working with him on my show. I mean, when something isn't working, I say, James, do you have anything? And we'll try something. We'll give our producing creator an alt.
DJ?
Yeah. And DJ will call James and say, what do you think of this? I mean, he's as skilled a writer and a director as he is an actor.
Do you write?
I do. I not as much anymore. I actually rewrite and I pitch ideas. I don't sit down and write scripts as much anymore.
Okay. So I talked to some people who are writers and show creators and showrunners, and eventually they climb the writing side of that ladder to become an executive producer. So can you explain, what is an executive producer on your end, and does that differ from the executive producer on the writer's ladder?
They are different. For instance, DJ Nash created A Million Little Things. He pitched the idea to the network. He sold it. He's responsible. Now Terrence Coley is running the writer's room, but DJ, and we call him TC, are still our creative executive producers at the top. And they basically design the arc of the season, every storyline, and every script goes through them. Even though there's a writer's room, they probably rewrite or direct how that's going to go. For me, I'm their creative co-executive producer on the ground in Vancouver, because they're in Los Angeles. And I'm on the phone when they're pitching to the network. So I know what they're pitching. I know what the show's basically going to be. And then they provide an outline, and then eventually I get a script. And what my job is to figure out how to execute that. I am involved in picking every location, every set that's being built, figuring out how it works for camera, knowing what the scene is going to be, where I want my camera ports to be, what walls I need to fly. I'm involved with casting, and I oversee and prep every director that comes in. So I direct, and then a new director comes in, and I'm on every one of his or her calls with the art department and our set deck and transportation. There's so many subs that go into making a film. There's so many departments. So I follow all that all the way through.
That sounds busy.
It's very busy. I'm kind of their creative person on the ground, but DJ and Terrence, I work for them. People wonder if an executive producer puts up the money. They don't. The network puts up the money. So we're always dealing with the network, and they are really dealing with the network. But I, help hire directors and do all that.
I mean, you've directed a bunch of the episodes, but even when you're not directing, you're still there overseeing everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so earlier I said we were going to touch on a little bit of a crossover between Three's Company and you. You were on Three's Company a few times. Two-time previous guest of my show, Jason Ritter. He was also on A Million Little Things. He had an arc, and people who watch it know what that was, and I'm not going to spoil it for those who don't. Did you have a chance to direct any of the episodes that he was on?
No, I think that was season 2 or 3, but I did get to direct Jason on Joan of Arcadia.
Oh, nice.
And I directed his brother on The Good Doctor.
The Good Doctor. Okay, rock on.
Yes.
So you did say that you participated in some of the casting and some of the hiring of, let's say, directors and things. Can you talk to DJ for me and see if we can get Jason to have another recurrence? He didn't die, so can he just come back for a little bit?
They love him, by the way. They love him.
Everybody loves Jason Ritter. He's amazing.
I know, just like his dad. We all loved his dad.
Another one of the people who raised me. So shout out to both of you. There is a director. She's an Academy Award winning director. I don't know if you've had the chance to work with her. I'm sure you probably have. Her name is Jessica Yu.
I have not worked with Jessica Yu, but she's incredible.
You should hire her.
If we can get her.
Okay, I'll make it happen. I'm friends with her brother. I'll make sure it happens.
She was a documentary filmmaker to begin with.
That's how she won her Oscar. Yeah,
That's
was
right.
with that. But she directs all kinds of stuff now. She directs. She directed Castle, and she directs The Rookie. She directs everything now. So she started working originally for John Wells, who created ER and Shameless and Animal Kingdom and all that. Yeah, she was in that camp. Yes,
which is a great camp to be in. But
it's a good camp to be in, right? Is the season over for A Million Little Things, or are we just in sort of a break?
We're just in a break. I'm getting ready to go back, actually. We're just hiring all our directors right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're going back. We've been picked up for 13, and we're going to be in mid-season.
Okay, cool. So I guess that answers my question. If you are going forward, still going to be part of the show. So yes.
Yes.
Now, your executive producing role and your directing role, when you sign that contract, is that season by season? Like, are you going to be part of next season?
I believe if there's a next season, I would be part of it. When they first hired me last season, they asked if I would sign on for at least 2. And I said, yes.
Okay.
It's a big deal to get people to move to Vancouver. I mean, I will be in Vancouver, over 6 months this year.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot to be away, but I love it up there. I mean, it's
you must.
Yeah.
Or you would have said no.
Hey, streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Now, I didn't know how good I had it till I met some other whiskeys from the city. It turns out a small town and an even smaller batch made me the most headstrong spirit both sides of the Pecos. Call me critical batch, Texas bourbon. Raised by a sailor in Bulverde, Texas, bottled at 110 proof, they took me out of the barrel and didn't know which end to slap. So why don't you come taste the pure definition of bourbon? Grain, to barrel to bottle and join our little rebellion. You may all go to the liquor store. I'll be at Chaplin Distillery, 30790 Blanco Road in Bulverde, Texas. Ask for CB in the tasting room, and I'll see you soon. That was the Bourbon Talking, Streetwalkers. Chaplin Distillery is proudly veteran-owned and operated. Follow them on Instagram and Facebook, or go to chaplindistillery.com. And maybe I'll see you at the tasting room.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, shifting gears a lot. Word on the street is that Night Court is coming back.
Yes.
Also, word on the street is that you're set to direct some of those episodes. Is this true? And if so, when might we see some of it?
You know, I don't know what their air date is. Because of my schedule, I'm only directing one.
Okay.
I do that right after the 4th of July.
Oh, so imminently.
Yeah, first episode back. So yeah, I just been watching the episodes that they've shot already. My friend Pam Fryman did the pilot and did a bunch. Oh yeah, she's amazing.
She's huge. She's the executive producer and director of almost, if not all, of the episodes of How I Met Your Mother.
Yes, and you should actually talk to her.
Yes, I should. You should actually make that happen.
I will make that happen.
She's a legend. Oh my gosh, she's amazing.
Circling back, you said, was it hard to break in as a woman director? It was impossible. When the half hour went away and I went into the hour side, there were literally shows that said, well, we hired a woman last year.
Mm-hmm.
We did that. Or this is an action show. We don't hire women. Or, you know, thinking that women can't shoot a car chase or can't do, you know, it took people like John Wells hiring women and literally the Me Too movement to kind of change the narrative. And when I started directing, only 8% of the Directors Guild were women. And a lot of those were first ADs. So they weren't really directing. They were assisting the director. So let's say probably 6% of the entire guild were women. And you have to be in the guild to direct network television. Today, even though it's much better, there's only 18%.
Really?
And of that 18%, a certain percentage are first ADs. So, I mean, it's coming along slowly. Thank God diversity is also, being a woman doesn't count as diverse, but the pendulum is swinging. And we've got really good women directors, really fabulous. And Pam was one of the early ones. She broke into the half hour because only men. First of all, Jimmy Burrows directed everything, and Pam Fryman directs everything else. But she's made it in that world. She's pretty fabulous and a friend. I really like.
James Burrows was Cheers, right?
Cheers.
Yeah, you're right. He directs everything. I've only ever been on one, I guess they're called studio lots. Yes, I've only ever been on one studio lot. And it happens to be the one that I guess they're filming Night Court at. Warner Brothers, yeah, right there in Burbank.
Yeah.
Okay. So when this was weird. I went for an event. It was not for a show. It was for a memorial service of a very loved person. And of course, because it's a movie studio, you have to basically have a ticket to get in, right? So I had a ticket that I had to show the guard, but on the ticket, which I thought was super strange, was printed Central Perk Cafe, like the cafe on Friends where they would always have coffee. That's what was on the ticket. I mean, it said words, but that was the background on the ticket was Central Perk. And I just thought that was the weirdest thing. Do you have to have a ticket, or you just get to say, hello, I'm me, and you just get to walk through there? How does that work?
Studio lots are so locked down now. I have to show ID, and I have to be on a list to get in every day. And
even
me. And when I do a show for a long period of time, they give me a lanyard that I can use.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I only have a couple more questions. I know we're running up against it here, so I appreciate you bearing with me. Earlier, you said your sister went to 2 Olympics.
Yeah.
Are you mad at her?
No.
Here's why I'm asking, because you said she went to 2 Olympics, but I'm under the impression she won 2 gold medals.
She did. And,
and you didn't mention that.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, she went to 2 Olympics.
Well, she won 2 gold medals and a bronze medal And she was the first woman sportscaster.
That's fantastic.
And she co-founded the Women in Sports Foundation with Billie Jean King.
Good Lord.
And she lobbied for Title IX. She's all over the news this week because Title IX is having its anniversary.
Ah.
Yeah, I'm very proud of her.
All right. Make sure we get that in there.
We fight too, you know.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay. Joanna, where can people find you on social media?
I think it's at Real Joanna Kerns. I'm terrible at this.
I'll tell you what, everybody listening, just scroll down to the show notes and you'll find all of her social media tags there. And lastly, is there anything we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about that you specifically wanted to talk about today? Did I miss anything?
I don't know. Besides the news, no, I don't want to talk about the news. Women's health and the ability to get the help we need, regardless of the circumstance, is paramount for me.
Joanna Kerns, I can't believe that I didn't fanboy out too much. I'm so proud of myself.
You're great, Steve. You're great.
You are amazing. Thank you for being one of my babysitters and helping keep me out of trouble because, like I said, it was appointment TV. So I had to be at my house in front of a TV instead of whatever else I was doing.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And oh my gosh, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day and your hectic directing everything scheduled to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street. I really appreciate it.
Well, this was fun and I can't wait to hear it. When can I hear it?
This is going to be released on July 4th, actually. Happy 5th anniversary, me.
Yes, congratulations. It's really great.
Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your week. Safe travels all over the place. Seriously, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
And I'm going to set you up with Pam Fryman.
Well, then I'm going to set you up with Jessica Yu.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jax Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.